על ישראל, באמונתו על ישראל, ביראתו על ישראל, גאוותו על ישראל, יראתו על ישראל, אהבה והדרתו על ישראל, וידעתו על ישראל, זכירתו על ישראל, חמלתו.
Hello everyone, this is the first in the series of solo Slichos, saying Slichos without a minyan. We obviously try to go to minyan and say Slichos with the congregation, but sometimes circumstances dictate that we cannot get there. And the question is, what are the rules and regulations that regulate such an occurrence? Do you say the 13 attributes of mercy, namely Yud Gimel Midot, if you do not have a minyan, or not? The source of saying the Yud Gimel Midot again and again during Slichot is based on a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Zayin Amud Bet, in which the Gemara says, "Melamed shenitatev HaKadosh Baruch Hu k'shliach tzibor," God, as you will, put on a talus like a chazan. V'herala Moshe said their tefillah and told Moshe, "This is what you should do. Anytime the Jewish people sin, you should do what it says in the 13 attributes of mercy, v'ani mochel lahem, and I will forgive them." And the Gemara ends with the fact that there's a contract that has been contracted with these 13 attributes of mercy, she'einan chozrot rekam, they don't come back empty-handed. So, based on that, we see that the context of the Gemara is God is a shliach tzibor, is a chazan of a congregation. And therefore the Rashba was asked in a tshuva, can you say it without a minyan? After all, we're going to say it derech tefillah bakashat rachamim. We're not saying it as a pasuk from Parshat Kitisa, where the 13 attributes are written, but rather as a prayer and a supplication that God should forgive us. Can we say it without a minyan? One school of thought says absolutely not. And say the Rav Amram Gaon, he quotes the Rosh Yeshiva of one of the Gaonic yeshivas, Rav Natan, that says absolutely not. You're not allowed to say it except with a congregation, because the whole context is that God came along and said that I will forgive a congregation. After all, he put on a talus like a chazan. And he quotes a pasuk, Hein El Kabir Lo Yimas, which is a pasuk the Gemara uses regarding a minyan. V'karata kadosh baruch hu briti Moshe v'im avotenu she'inan chozrot lekam lefikach en omer oto ela b'tzibur. Therefore, you should only say it in a congregation. So, Or Zarua, living many generations later, one of the greats of Ashkenaz, namely Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Moshe from Vienna, his years 1180 till 1250, was a Talmud of the Ravya, and many of the Balei HaTosfos and the Rebbe of the Maharami Rutenberg comes along and says that according to the Gaonim, you do not say the 13 attributes of mercy Ela b'tzibur, because Brit Krutad Yud Gimel Minot Shenat Chozot Rekam, that this contract is only with the congregation. The Torah brings this point of view. The Bach explains the Or Zarua in the following way. After all, a person could say, you know what, I'm not saying it like the Rashba said, derech tefillah uvakashat rachamim. I'm just going to quote the psukim from Parshat Kitisa. You're not allowed to lane psukim from the Torah anytime you want. You don't need a minyan to do shtayim mikra vecha targum to mavir sedra. So I'm just going to say the psukim. Says the Bach, who are you kidding? Rav Yael Sirka is living in the generation after the Shulchan Aruch says, what are you kidding me? You just decided on a Sunday, the first day of Slichos, to say the Yud Gimel Midot. You're saying it not kekriya ba'alma, not because you're learning Torah, but rather ikar kavanato levakesh rachamim. Actually, you're going out and you're asking God for mercy, and therefore don't kid anyone. You're only saying it because it's slichos, because you want to ask God for mercy, and this is exactly what the Taz says. From this perspective, absolutely no 13 attributes of mercy. However, exactly what the Bach says is not your intention is what seems to be the Rashba's answer to this question. There is a Gemara in Baba Basra Daf Pei Bet Amud Aleph that talks about a guy who's not clear if he has to bring Bikurim. Because it's not clear if he has to say Aremi Oved Avi, that whole parsha you say when you bring your first fruits. And therefore the Gemara says, why not just say the psukim? And the Gemara answers, the mechsek is shikra. It looks like you're lying. Well, the Rashbam explains in that Gemara that Bishvil avat bikurim kakare. You're not saying it for no reason. You're saying it because you're bringing your first fruits. But, he says, if you're just quoting psukim, maybe it's not necessarily a lie. Based on that prototype, it's probably what the Rashba is based on when he says that if you come and say the Yud Gimel Midot like you learn Torah, derech kriya be'alma, then you could say it. And the Torah actually says it's absolutely okay to do it, despite the words of Rabbi Natan, the Rosh Yeshiva. And as a matter of fact, the Abu Draham says exactly the same thing, and he even says Rabbeinu Yonah agrees with this. The Trumat Hadeshen, going to the Ashkenazic world from the Sephardic world, agrees that you cannot say the 13 attributes of mercy just like that, but if you're going to say them like you learn Torah, benigun uvetahamim, ki'ilu haya koreh b'Torah, with the trap, then there's no problem, even though you can't say them usually without a minyan. And ultimately, this is the way that the Shulchan Aruch paskins. The Shulchan Aruch paskins like the Rashba against the Rabbi Natan, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of the Gaonim and the Or Zarua, and a Yachid Rashai Lomar Shloshos Midot derech Tfilo Vakashat Rachamim, the Davar Shebekdushaim, Avalim Bal Omram derech Kriya Be'alma, and the Magen Avraham adds Benigunu V'Ta'amim, with the trop Omram, you could say them. Well, based on that, you have basically a choice. You could be machmir and totally omit them, which is what I do, but you could say them with the trop, and you could say, listen, there's no minyan, but I'm reading psukim from Parshat Ki Tisa. It's not clear, though, what the Beit Yosef paskint. In the Shulchan Aruch, it's clear he paskint you're allowed to. But the Beit Yosef says the following words: even though the Abu Dram agrees with the point of view that you could say them as a laning and not as a supplication, this is not the minhag. What does that mean? So in a beautiful response from one of the Gedolim of Galicia, namely Rav Yaakov Shor, his years 1853 to 1924, he was the Rav of Kitov, he says, hey, Beit Joseph says it's not the minhag, just like the Taz and the Bach, we don't say the Yud Gimel Midot at all. Rav Ovadia Yosef totally disagreed and said that that's not what he meant. The Beit Joseph was actually commenting, as he does, on the Torah. The Torah wrote his code of Jewish law, the son of the Rosh, Rabbeinu Yaakov Balaturim, and the Beit Joseph, Rav Yosef Karo, was commenting on him. And he basically said that based on what the Torah said, Shelo amru shetzarich asara, ela dvarim shebekdusha, kegon Kaddish, Kedusha, Baruch Hu, that you only need 10 for Kaddish, Kedusha, and Baruch Hu, but maybe not for Yud Gimel Midot. On that, the Beit Yosef says that's not the minhag. We're going to consider Yud Gimel Midot like Kaddish, Kedusha, and Baruch Hu. But to say that with the trop, that's not a problem. And therefore, it makes sense because that's what the Shulchan Aruch paskins himself. So to sum up, saying the Yud Gimel Midot even with the trop is a bit problematic. Many say even that doesn't work because who are you kidding? You're saying them during Slichos, so obviously you mean it for Slichos, but others allowed it if you say it with the trop. Well, one question remains. You have to say the full pasuk, or can you stop in the middle like we usually do when we say the Yud Gimel Midot? More about that next time.